Hi, everyone. It's me, Krylios, Team Racing Productions MC and producer. And joining me today is Dr. Ashley J. Elliott. Welcome.
I was on muted. Technology.
There you
How
go.
you doing? Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you here. How are you?
Great. Just enjoying the fact that I am in-house and with my family today.
Awesome. Awesome. It's always good to have some family time. So I love that. Welcome, Dr. Ashley J. Elliott. Of course, we love to start these things off by just having our guest introduce themselves to our audience and let them know a little bit about you, your background and experience.
Oh, well, thank you. So yes, I'm Dr. Ashley Elliott, also affectionately known as Dr. Vivid, your favorite fun size, pint size, travel size, social media therapist, actual doctor of clinical psychology. I am a DC native, a mom of two little girls who have a target addiction that everyone blames on me. Don't think that's fair. I'm also a mental health advocate, an advocate for the LGBTQIA plus community, a proponent of plant-based and alternative medicine, and just a DC girl who likes to do DC things. That's just me.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, welcome, Dr. Vivid. First of all, let me start off with that. Dr. Vivid, where did that come from?
So when I was in my last year of grad school, I was pregnant with my daughter, and I decided that I wanted to do more than just therapy. And I was sitting at my house at 1 a.m. and I said, I want to start a mental health consulting agency. I want to do that, but what would the name of it be? So I was thinking about all the things that are enlightening and all the things that align with me. And I'm really colorful, I'm really bright, but the idea of being vivid is something that breaks through and people can follow. And innovation, because I don't like doing traditional, ain't nothing traditional about me, babe. So I wanted to do that. And then when I launched my LLC and did everything, people in the community started, I would say, hey, I'm Dr. Ashley, Vivid Innovations. People at church and in the communities actually point me Dr. Vivid. And I said, you know what?
Oh.
That just works. And Dr. Vivid has been Dr. Vivid since September 2014.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. What was it about, mental health that really called you into that space, into that mental health space?
So I was born in 1987, meaning that I'm a 90s child in terms of the area.
Yeah.
And that era, we're talking about the crack era, police brutality, racial tension, a lot of misinformation about the queer population and HIV/AIDS. And all of these things were affecting my family and family members.
Yeah.
My mother is in recovery. She got 20 years under her belt, but at that time, I was seeing her struggle. She had me young. At that time, I was witnessing trauma. I've had guns pulled on me by police officers at the age of 7. I saw them completely just humiliate and abuse and assault gay men in the street at age 5. And I was dealing with family members who had paranoid schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, also some Down syndrome and other types of mental disorders. And being surrounded by this, I said, we need help. And at the age of 4, I started going to therapy. The therapist was terrible. And I knew it. And I told my mom, got me to another therapist. A white woman did not look like me. To this day, I swear that lady did not like Black people or Black kids. Was a terrible experience. And at the end of it, I went to my mom and said, if I feel like this, mommy, do other kids feel like this? No other kids should feel like this. And since then, it has been my passion.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. And how has it changed how you think about, people, communities, all of that by being able to interact with people and of course, in a deeper way, because you are dealing with mental health. You know, you're dealing with what's going on in the psyche. You're able to see and understand certain behaviors in a different way than someone who is, you know, not in that space and not able to really understand that is. How has that changed how you kind of view people and view communities and all of that?
It's funny, I've always been an empath by nature,
Mhm.
but I'm Black and I'm queer and I'm a
Mhm.
woman.
Mhm.
So what my clinical skill has enhanced my empathy tenfold,
Mhm. Yeah.
because instead of responding, I can there's a level of understanding that I have.
Yeah.
So I seek to connect instead of defend.
Mhm.
And that's hard sometimes, especially when
Yeah.
your being is being attacked or you see other things that are conflicting in the community.
Mhm.
So I try to go with a message of empathy and empowerment when
Mhm.
I'm talking to people in my community, or I'm talking to people on my platforms, because conversations and understanding can help go a long way and
Yeah.
can help extinguish a lot of fiery situations if we just take time to listen to each other.
Yes. Yeah.
So the clinical tools that I have gained, I merged them with my personality and the tools that come to me naturally, and it's just an enhanced form of understanding that I
Yeah.
bring to
Yeah.
people.
Oh, that is great. That is great. Now, when it comes to Black people, queer people, there are, you know, very specific things that affect Black people and affect queer people that may not affect others. And it's always very important to have an individual in the mental health space who is aware of these things, who knows the tools and the methods and the ways of dealing with those things. As you are in this space and also happen to be Black and queer yourself, talk to me about some of those struggles or experiences that Black and queer people will go through, and probably definitely need some support and some tools and resources to help when it comes to mental health.
Definitely. In the Black community, mental health treatment is surrounded by taboo and stigma. A lot
Mhm.
of us growing up have heard, you know, don't air your dirty laundry, or what goes on in this house stays in this house. And that mentality has resulted in a lot of undiagnosed mental health disorders, or resulted in a lot of faulty coping mechanisms. A lot of people who are hurting in silence because there's this idea that if you're Black, you can't share the way our white counterparts or our non-Black counterparts are sharing. But
Yeah.
also that's steeped in racial oppression, because a lot of our connection to the mental health system as Black people was through CPS, through going to
Mhm.
jail, through some type of community program that was not meant for our benefit. It was actually built as a way to infiltrate and break us down. So
Mhm.
we have a lot of this mistrust of the system. So being a Black person, I'm like, I've infiltrated the system in a different capacity. I know what you're needing. I know how to communicate with you. I know what it feels like to not have resources or to have
Mhm.
your own level of mistrust. So I use that as the key for enlightening, empowering, and educating people. This is a safe place. There are
Yeah.
other people who look like me. And that goes into the queer space too. Again, another group of people who are marginalized and oppressed, and there's something wrong with you. That's why you need to go to seek
Yeah.
mental health therapy. Like, who you are and how you're presenting isn't right. So we're trying to fix you. Like, think about conversion therapy and things
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
So a
Mhm.
lot of queer folk know they're struggling with mental health diagnoses or illnesses or really serious stressors, but because a lot of these programs and systems were aligned with you're not right, you're the
Mhm.
problem, they don't trust. And that's okay. I honor that. But I stand in my space with this intersectionality and go, I am here. I'm safe. I'm going to connect you
Mhm.
with safe people, safe places. Anytime you don't feel safe, we'll cease whatever relationship is
Yeah.
going, and let me show you that there are other queer folk, other Black and queer folk, other Black folk who
Mhm.
have your best interest in mind. And if you, in certain areas where there aren't Black or queer representation, there isn't Black or queer representation, let me connect you with someone or folk who are actually real allies and not
Yeah.
performative allies.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
That's important. That is so important. Now, since this new decade has started, 2020, we've gone through a lot, from COVID, lots of trauma from different things, laws and rules, and this changing, all of these different things. Talk to me about some of the coping mechanisms that people can kind of employ, to kind of get through these tough times, whether it's COVID, whether it's monkeypox, whether it's this from, but for the things that are going on right now, because I'm sure that we're all in a new space in this decade. And if you were here the decade before, it's something new. And if you're just a kid born, you're born into a very different world than we have probably experienced. So talk to me about some of the things you have seen in that mental health space and some of the coping mechanisms.
Yeah, it's been wild. I call it season 3, episode 7 of the Panini Pandemic Press. And because it feels like it's just continuous. We feel like we catch a break, and then it's like monkeypox, this, that, more. And what I've been stressing to people is I need you to practice grace and patience as a coping mechanism first, because we've never been through this before. Never. And when you encounter a new experience, you can only go with the tools that you have. So if you're caught off guard, if you're financially unprepared, if the stress is a lot for you and you're overwhelmed, it's okay. You haven't gone through this before. So give yourself the space and the time and the pacing to say, I'm just going to go through it a step at a time. Another thing is disconnecting. Yeah. Our bodies are not made to constantly consume trauma, direct or indirect. You saying that I can't watch the news right now, or I can't be on social media right now, doesn't mean that you don't care. It means you care enough about your mental health to say, I have to take a step back from consumption so that I can re-regulate my body and my emotions. Especially as a Black girl, there's so much trauma that we face every day. I can't look at every video involving police brutality or racial tension or reproductive rights. I'm very versed in what's going on. However, I can't constantly eat that. Think about it. I love donuts, baby. I love funnel cake. If I constantly eat that, it's not going to be great for my body. So you have to take a break for that. I've been telling people, do things like go outside safely and do what you want to do. Don't compare yourself to what other people are doing outside, because a lot of people are still operating under safety parameters that feel great for them. Trust yourself. Also, take this time to remember this is probably the longest you have been in houses, in areas with family members, with significant others, where you've had to constantly share a space without missing a beat. You are also learning that your patience is set up differently, and you're learning that communication styles are different. So taking time to really check in with yourself, journal, write, go to therapy, again, go to therapy. Take your meds, psychotropic meds, take your natural things, but just remember that this situation is going to constantly evolve. Anytime we go through a pandemic, historically speaking, it's not going to be a year or 2 or 3. It's going to be 5 to 10 before there's a real reset. So do not put pressure on yourself to try to show up in a way that no one really is expecting you to show up. Your best is your best from day to day. Monday's best and Tuesday's best may look different, but it's still your best.
Beautiful. Let's talk about the podcast. How did you come up with it? Tell me about the origins of the podcast.
So I came because my friends have been yelling at me for about 3 years about how I need to start a podcast because I have so much to offer. And I'm like, oh, you're just saying that because you're my friends. And they're like, no. And also peers in the space have been like, you have a very relatable and conversational style when it comes to really big mental health related issues and topics. So after sitting on a podcast as a guest with one of my good friends we went to college with, he was like, at the end of the podcast, he stops recording. He's like, okay, so when you gonna stop playing? And I feel, I feel called out. I feel attacked. So immediately that weekend in August, I started creating and started thinking about how I wanted to do my segments, and I ran with it. And now we're in our second season of Vividly Speaking with Dr. Vivid. And it's a mental health and wellness podcast, but I approach it with, I'm your sis. I'm the girl on the block that you can have a conversation with, but I'm also your pocket-sized professional. And people can come, they can send me questions about their mental health topics or questions related to everyday stressors, and I address them in my Well Mail segment. I talk to you about music that's appealing to me, that's hitting me spiritually, emotionally, and helping me get through. And I also talk about different topics related to mental health and wellness. Like I just had an episode about Kim Burrell.
Oh, Lord, help us.
Kim, please just sing and put the mic down. But things that we need to talk about that are our mental health. Like people are like, how does you make that connection? I'm like, well, this is a reason why so many people are migrating from the Black church, especially Black people, queer people, because we don't feel safe. And that impacts our spiritual and our mental health, feeling attacked and not feeling safe in spaces that are supposed to create safety for us. So those are some of the things that we talk about on our weekly podcast.
I love that. And what has the response been so far? And how has it fulfilled you since doing it?
It's been beautiful. One of my favorite things is getting a DM or getting an email from people saying, well, oh my gosh, I feel so seen. Or I talked about my mom. I talked about this with my mom or my parents or my friends, or specifically, I had an episode with my mom where she talked about her addiction and her mental health and how she has worked through it. And a lot of people really said that resonated with me because I'm dealing with that in my family. I never see it from that perspective, or it gives me hope that, so hearing things like mommy guilt and people saying, oh my God, me too. Or I also love when people are like, your music selections are fire. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It just makes me feel good that people are connecting with it and it doesn't feel sterile and it doesn't feel overly clinical, and they're being enlightened and they're taking these conversations. This is all I use my platform for. I honestly want you to have conversations with your friends so they can have conversations with their friends, and we can work to destigmatize the conversations around mental illness. So
that is so important. Yes, I love that. Well, Dr. Vivid, how can people find the podcast? How can they keep up with everything that you're doing, follow you, get updates, and be able to contact you when they want?
Oh my gosh. So you can contact me directly. My email or my website, you can go to drvivid.com. On TikTok, on Instagram, on those Facebook streets is at Dr. Vivid, DRVIVID. Twitter is Dr. spelled out, Dr. Vivid. And also the podcast is on all your favorite streaming platforms, honey, from that Apple, that's Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, and about 7 others that I'm forgetting right now. But just go and put my name in.
Anywhere podcasts are available.
There we go.
I love that. Well, we are going to have the links in the description below so that our audience can go ahead and keep up with everything Dr. Vivid is doing. And of course, subscribe to the podcast. Dr. Ashley Elliott, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been such a pleasure. And thank you so much for the work that you do in our communities.
Oh, thank you for having me. And thank you for giving me a chance to meet your great following. Connect with me. I love you. I'm good. I don't bite. I promise.
I love it. I love it. Well, to our viewers, please follow Team Racine Productions at Team Racine on all forms of social media. Click around our YouTube channel and check out our other interviews, vlogs, forums, and more. And while you're at it, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. But most of all, thank you for watching. Bye, everyone.
Bye.